It's time for Cats Talk Wednesday. Small town and big city joined forces. Vinny Hardy of Lynch, Kentucky, and Terry Brown of Louisville, Kentucky, team up to give you free-flowing, laid-back sports talk. Focus on Kentucky Wildcats, as well as pertinent information in the NBA, NFL, and Major League Baseball.
Live on Twitter, here we be. Vinny and TB, Cats Talk Wednesday, courtesy of the BS3 Network. Live on Twitter and YouTube, Facebook. Subscribe, follow the show, go to Spotify. Give us 5 stars if you want to. We appreciate all that. TB downed in his Kyle Shanahan get down tonight. How you doing?
He had the all white on this past weekend. He had the all white Nike fit on. So it's my coaching stuff.
Yeah,
doing good. COVID has hit the house, so I'm gonna be bowing out after a little bit here tonight. Not quite 100%, but I had to come on here and talk a little bit about our Cats and the Tar Heels, man.
Apologies to Ben Sutterth. He rocks for that other shade of blue, and they came up on the short end of a great game. So we got y'all, Ben. I know he'll be checking in later, but Cats over heels. We'll take it.
This is what I like about the North Carolina games. They've been generally good games. Even though we've lost some, but they've generally been good games. So Malik Monk going for 47. I know they got us back in the tournament on last-second shot. Anthony Davis, Drew Henson, going back Tayshaun Prince, the 5 threes. Liggins hitting the 3 in the tournament.
Yeah.
I mean,
Severe Wheeler killed him.
People like, I'm about time we won some of these games. Y'all, look, I get it, but we both raced Kansas 2 seasons. Like it hasn't been this long drive anyway. But North Carolina, there's never a gimmick. It's just like, if you're better, you're better. If we're better, we're better. There's no gimmicks.
Yeah.
There's no. That's why I was telling the missus. When it comes to North Carolina, the games are generally pretty fun. They're really high level. To me, it's 1 and 2 as far as blue bloods. If we've got a ranking, I definitely have Kentucky 1, North Carolina 2. Done it with different coaches. Done it in different eras. I tip my hat to the Tar Heels. Baycott looks like he replaced Brad Daugherty. It looked like he's been there for a while. It's crazy to have teammates of Michael Jordan still playing, but it was a good game, man. The freshmen stepped up. We got good minutes from everybody. I thought it was just a hard-fought game. North Carolina made a run, as they are going to do, because they're a good team as well, and Kentucky answered. So for me, it was a good win. DJ Wagner sealing the deal, Reed doing what he's doing. We're all down for the Rob Dillingham experience. I mean, you take the good, you take the bad. Hey, I love it, man. You don't know what's going to happen with that dude, but most of it's been good.
Yeah.
Thiero has found his niche.
Those blocks, boy. That one where homeboy just knew he had that, and the chase down and in the reverse, just
and so they're figuring it out. Oyenso played. Bradshaw, everybody said wasn't going to play. He played. Man, I like this team.
And that was Ugo's first run, period. And he gets, he gets thrown out. This wasn't Kentucky State. He gets put out there. First time since last year where he got hurt against North Carolina. He had 3 blocks and a nice assist too. A nice little assist. Hit a free throw. And so, he's going to kind of get his legs under him and get a little more comfortable going forward too.
I like this team, man. That's the team. That's the thing is, what we saw against Kansas is as good as that was. It's gotten a little bit better. I know the drop to UMC Wilmington, but as with a full complement of players, I like this squad a tremendous amount.
Yeah, for sure, man. So it's going to be a fun ride. coming to your hometown tomorrow night. The ACC tour continues. It'll be Miami and now North Carolina and now Louisville at the Yum Center for the first time in a little minute, I think, since it's been
Yeah.
with
Been a while.
COVID and all that craziness with the schedule and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So Cats and Cards tomorrow on a weird Thursday evening game, usually a Saturday afternoon. This is the first time to me, and I might be wrong. I mean, I could easily have looked this up at bigbluehistory.net, but I want to say 2017 Fox and Monk, because that was on a Wednesday night because you were there.
And we did a show.
And we talked to the great Lee Steinberg.
We talked to Lee Steinberg. I talked to him in a hallway there. I found a quiet area to call in and talk to him on that Wednesday night.
Yeah. So
the worst thing to happen before that was Monk going for 47 against North Carolina because he went a little cold and should have gave the ball up a little bit more. But anyway, look, beat Louisville. Just beat them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they already got their excuses out.
What? What could they possibly
for the
have?
beat down? And this, look, copium is a hell of a drug. And I meant to send this to you. A friend of the show, Jesse Reed, a 49ers fan. This went around 49ers Twitter after we beat the Seahawks the first time. Okay, in Seattle a couple weeks ago. And this person that writes for Seahawks, whatever, one of their thing is basically was like, you know, they outscored the 49ers in the third quarter and outgained them in the second half. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, what am I supposed to do with this information? What is this?
Oh, they reaching, boy, reaching.
And so some of my Louisville friends who I like, you know, like I've talked about, is it a rivalry or is it not a rivalry? Right? They're already ready to talk about how, and I think it's safe to say Kentucky will win tomorrow night, barring a miracle. Okay. But if Kentucky fans are like, yes, we won. Oh, you know, we living rent free in your head and y'all always worried about us. Is this a rivalry? Is it not? I need to know. Because when Kentucky fans behave like it's a rivalry, then it's a big deal. Then it's a bad thing. But when their women's team won 7 straight, when they're 7 straight against Kentucky, then that's how you take care of a rivalry. Well, it can't be a rivalry if your team only when your team wins.
Right. Yeah.
That can't be the prerequisite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you saw him with the, you know, nice try, little sis, and all that when
yes,
won. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's
fair weather rivalrying.
And I've seen, you know, people are like, you know, some Kentucky fan going to bring up when Lamar fumbled. Bro, y'all know if we had a Heisman Trophy winner, I know, long shot, and he fumbled against y'all wouldn't still talk about it?
Oh, man.
I still get people bring up Edgar Sosa. Remember that 3-point shot he just banked in, you know, against, and then that's the other thing. Oh, y'all had your football win streak was against Satterfield. Like, he was your coach. What's that got to do with us? And, well, you know, this was just Brahms' first year. I knew they had it going. I knew that was going to be a thing. It's just first year. Now, before that, it was the Brahman wealth of Kentucky. Right. Before that, Brahm knew everything about the thing. So if it's a rivalry, let it be a rivalry. That's all I'm saying.
Because Brahm was going to cure all the Satterfield stuff. He was going to get out. He was here to save the day. You know, Brahman, like you said, Brahman wealth. They couldn't wait.
And again, like that's my thing is if it's a rivalry, it's a rivalry. Like, and that's what separates. And I used to put Louisville, Kentucky up there against any of the other rivalries. But you'll never hear that. You know, when Ohio State won 15 out of 16 against Michigan in football, no Michigan fan was like, well, that was just Rich Rodriguez or Brady Hoke.
Yeah.
Right? No, they were like, no, we got to win this game.
Yeah. It wasn't like Ohio State hired that coach for you.
Right.
You chose him.
It's a rivalry. And look, to be clear, real quick.
Y'all beat us by 3 barely because we had Billy Gillespie.
It didn't count, right? So this is the thing. I want Louisville to be better at men's basketball. I do.
Mm-hmm.
This is not great. Arkansas State running you off the floor, not great.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to be better. Also, Kentucky fans, yes, Louisville's a top 10 program all time.
Mm-hmm.
Full stop. Full stop. Whatever your criteria is, Louisville is right there. I don't put them quite blue blood status, but they are right there in the top 10. I got them 7 or 8 on my personal list. The problem is when you look at Louisville's numbers, and I think people should, better than you think.
Mm-hmm.
The same way Auburn football, better than you think.
Yeah.
Heisman Trophy winners, national championships, blah, 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 blah. The problem is, as good as Auburn is, they're still within the same state of the team, Alabama, that soaks up all the oxygen. Right? As good as Louisville is, it's not Kentucky.
Yeah.
And I think just being that close proximity is what overshadows one over the other. That's my thing. It's like here, Iowa State, 8 national championships for wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa, 24.
Mm.
It's just,
that's rough.
We just want to be great, but great rough. Win over North Carolina. Cats big over Louisville tomorrow night, bizarrely on a Thursday night, and everything. But I'm going to check out, take me some drugs, and have a good night. But I wanted to come in and check in.
Appreciate it. You being a gamer, you came through
and quick shout out to your NFC number 1 seed San Francisco 49ers.
We need Lamar and them to do something about that Mondays. We need somebody to do something. So yeah, I mean, you're looking like that, but I'm gonna be pulling for the Ravens Monday night, of course.
I was pulling for y'all against Philadelphia
because it would, for y'all to still have a number 1 seed and all
be that as it may. Right, I was still like, go Cowboys.
Yeah, no.
I got
and then you tweeted out that
agendas.
And you had that picture of the British people looking down at the 49ers and the Cowboys. This 49ers watch the Cowboys and the Eagles. That's look at those two teams.
Oh, that's cute.
We beat them by a combined 87 points. Yeah. So, that's pious.
Well, we got you're right. Christmas, we got the Ravens on Christmas, and then Washington, and then the Rams. I'm hoping we only beat the Washington by 10, so I can go to the NFC East fan boards and just watch everybody. We only lost to the 49ers by this much.
Right. Yeah.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious. But love it, love it, love it. Yeah. Tell our guests we appreciate it, but I gotta take some drugs and rest and everything.
Yeah, appreciate you. Hope you feel better. If you got any questions for Clayton and JR, text them and I'll I'll ask them and we'll
absolutely
we'll carry on, try to hold it down, man.
I appreciate it. Thanks, man.
All right. Be safe. Terry TB Brown up there in the frozen cornfield tundra of Iowa. A little bit under the weather. Appreciate him checking on, but we got a guest backstage, friend of the show. Been a minute since we had him on here. An author, got another book out. We're going to talk about that. We're talking about our guy, Clayton Trutor, who Boston Ball is out now. Rick Pitino, Jim Calhoun, Gary Williams, Forgotten Cradle of Basketball Coaches. It's his latest release. We got Clayton backstage. We'll bring him on right now. Clayton, man, how you doing, sir?
Great, Vinny. Thanks for having me on. Terry, hope you're feeling better. Hope you get some rest, take your medicine, and I'll see you down the road a little bit.
Yeah, we have to get you back on, of course, if you would like to down the road and have
of course. Love coming on with you guys. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been a while. Like the first time you came on, you hadn't even written any books yet, right?
No, I was writing for SB Nation at the time. I was writing about Cincinnati at the time. I remember I was about to go play bar trivia, and I was sitting in the parking lot in my car talking to you guys. I didn't have the heater on because it would make too much noise. So like for 25 minutes, it was like a 20-degree night or something. I'm sitting there chatting with you guys, and happy to get in the bar to get warm afterwards. And then we talked when my first book came out, and maybe one other time too. But I've loved coming on your guys' show, and thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, man, you should have told us you were out there in the elements like that, man. My fault.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, and look for everybody. Look, we're on video now since you're on last time. So here is Boston Ball, Clayton's latest book, talking about Gary Williams, Rick Pitino, Jim Calhoun, how they all got their starts up there in Boston in relative obscurity. How has everything been going? Are you kind of exhaling now that you've gotten it written and out, and kind of getting responses and feedback? How are you right now that you got your second book out for the people?
Once I submit the book, which is, it's like a year before it actually comes out, I feel like the pressure is off. Everything from there, I come on podcasts, I talk to people who like basketball about the book. I mean, it's a lot of fun from the time you get it submitted. I mean, it's fun to write in a lot of ways, but there's certainly some pressure about it, meeting deadlines and everything. But I really feel great about it now, and it's been fun to see the positive responses from people, and for particularly the people who are discussed in the book. I interviewed 95 people for the book, and many of them I've heard from saying that they're glad the era has been represented and that their story's been told. And it's very meaningful seeing people, 40 years down the line that they get a sense that their story as basketball players is being brought to public attention again. And I feel great pride in that.
Did you say you interviewed 95?
Yes, it was only possible because of the pandemic, because like I do a lot of this like right when things are getting started. So for 3 months, I crank out 95 interviews in 3 months. The good thing is once I talk to one of these, like, let's say I talk to one guy on BU, these guys are still really tight, many of them. So like I'd be on a text chain like the next day with like 7 other guys. So once I talk to one guy, I end up talking to a half dozen really quickly because they're all still friends, which to me is an important element of the book too, the relationship the players on these teams had during this time period.
So that's one of the things I had written down. You said, you kind of went there. You said you had 95, and one of the good things about the pandemic is you're able to do that. If there anything good came out of it,
only good pot. I mean, and that's just good for me specific, in a bad red hole, but just specifically for one guy writing a book about one thing, it was very positive in this very tiny sense.
So like it made accessibility easier because people were just like, when you're here stuck at home, and hey, I'll answer the phone. Hey, I'll reply to this email. And I mean, like from that
people
standpoint,
were bored. Absolutely, people were just sitting around. They'd watched Tiger King already. They needed something else to do. So once they'd watched that, seen Joe Exotic a couple times, they were ready to talk to me. Like I had Zooms where like 6 guys were on it, and it was like a reunion kind of deal.
Wow.
Like guys who hadn't seen each other in 20 years or something. Or, oh yeah, nice. Oh, you live in Buffalo now or whatever. Yeah, it was great. Just being a fly on the wall fly on the wall for these guys, getting to see each other again for the first time in many years.
That's awesome. So you had, like you said, Tiger King, and then The Last Dance, and then that was it.
Yes.
That was,
and I remember they rushed. They were going to show it in like August. So they're like, we got to get this out April 15th or whatever.
Yeah.
And I ended up watching, like the minute I finished it, I think I started it again. So nothing else. Might as well watch it again. It was pretty good. So
get a couple little nuggets that I missed, even though I lived through this and watched him win all these titles. But let me watch this.
I'd never seen Jordan dance on the bus with his Walkman before, so you need to watch that 4 or 5 times.
Here, kids, when nobody had phones, they all would read the paper on the plane. Look at that, children.
Absolutely.
So, as far as your process, like we've been talking about, the grinding, the interviewing 90 people, the which was easier during COVID, but the compiling of information and quotes and interviews, do you enjoy that when you're in the middle of the grind in the process, or do you just view it as, hey, I gotta do this to get this book out that I like, which I enjoy doing? Or how do you view that part of it where you're in it, but you're not done, and the light at the end of the tunnel isn't there yet, where you're doing all the interviews and all that stuff. What do you enjoy that part of it?
See, I kind of feel both ways at the same time. I feel a little bit of the grind, and I also enjoy it. I try to have a particular goal each day. I need to write this particular section about this particular game, or it's a day like I'm just like I go through all the interviews. I look for instances where guys talk about playing Syracuse or something like this. So I go find all those instances. I put them together. I put the game accounts when they're playing Syracuse together with that. So it depends on the day, but I try to have one particular task. And I feel a sense of accomplishment by the end of the day, whether it's whether if my other work commitments only let me spend 2 hours, or it's like a weekend and I can spend 6 hours on it. I mean, it can be very different each day. I try to pick a very realistic task for the day. And if I can accomplish that, I'm kind of moving forward in my process. I mean, I've heard people say right, because a book's 100,000 words or whatever. You write 1,000 words a day for 100 days, you got a book. It's just, and sometimes it's just kind of a matter of, if you can take those 2 or 3 hours, sit down, grind it out. It can be tough after work to do that. It depends on the day and I have a degree of flexibility with my work schedule. So that certainly helps with this. And also during that time period, it was, really weird because we're at home the whole time. But it's just, a lot of it's just having a schedule and keeping to it, and don't create unrealistic goals for yourself. Like some people think they're going to sit there and write War and Peace in one day or something. I'm not. If I can write about one game against Villanova or whatever, get that done for the day, I'll feel a sense of accomplishment and I can move on to the next thing the next day.
So you got that perspective as you write. Don't get too over your skis and get all crazy. I got you.
In some ways, it's like you doing one podcast at a time as opposed to doing hundreds of podcasts, simultaneously, kind of thing. I think it's sort of in some ways I know there's I've never done a podcast, but there's preparation for it. There's actually doing the podcast. You have this very particular increment that's part of a larger thing, and I think writing a book is requires a similar kind of diligence.
Yeah, and it's for us, is it just going to be Terry and myself? Are we going to have some guests? We have one guest. We have two guests. Sometimes we have three guests. What are the topics for each guest? He's going to have questions. I'm going to have questions. And then you just kind of arrange it. So when it's without the words, without the writing, it is a little process, in its own way, I guess.
I'm the worst guest when there's three guests on, because I have a big mouth. I love running my mouth. Love the sound of my own voice. When there's three people, I so badly want to talk when the other guys are talking. So I need to be the only guest, or I'm the worst possible guest, interrupting everybody else all the time on podcasts.
So maybe the debate shows, the First Take or the around. So on Around the Horn, you would stay muted. That's what you're saying. I
would get muted. Just continuously be getting muted, and I think I could do better just sitting there chatting on First Take or whatever. But any of the Around the Horn style, I would be just atrocious.
That's hilarious. Well, at least you know that about yourself. Some people do that and don't even realize that's how they are. So at least you.
Well, the thing is, I listen to myself afterwards and go, "Oh God, why did I say that? Why did I do that? I interrupted that guy every 5 seconds."
Oh man. Back to the book too. I had another question too, because I'm kind of picking up. You're pretty detail oriented. You got a process. So the chapter layout, the Calhoun Patino Williams. Was it a method to your madness as far as that, or is it just the way it worked out? Or you wanted it to be that way to alternate each guy? How did as far as
there's a lot of fudging in there because they're there at very different times. I mean, sometimes chronologically it's a little weird at times. I try to I pace each guy's time at each school out a little bit. But Jim Calhoun's at Northeastern for 14 years. He's there in 1972. I mean, Gary Williams is a high school coach in Camden, New Jersey at the time. Rick Pitino's still in college at UMass. They're not coaching until the late 70s, early 80s in these places. So I have to be a little more generous with time, I guess, with dealing with that one, as opposed to Gary Williams is at BC for 4 years. I can give each year basically a chapter. Patino's at BU for 5 years. I can basically give each year a chapter. So it kind of gets fudged together. Structurally, I'm completely imitating a book by John Feinstein called The Legends Club. That had a big influence on this book. He wrote a book. It was about Dean Smith, Jim Valvano, Coach K, all being in North Carolina at roughly the same time, the rivalries they had. It's sort of a little bit of a biography of each of them. I thought I'd read that book when I started thinking about this one. I was living in Boston at the time and realized that there were these 3 Hall of Fame careers that are kind of all starting simultaneously. Nobody really written about it. And I felt like structurally that made sense. He kind of moved each of their stories forward that way. So I imitated that structure in terms of this book.
Wow, that's pretty cool. And all those guys started. We were all. You might have been barely born or not born. I was like 4 or 5 when they started. But
yeah, I'm 42, so I was a little kid when they were getting going.
Yeah, and the whole Coach K thing. Carolina and NC State winning the title kind of distracted how bad he was starting off at Duke. He was like, I appreciate those guys cutting down nets. So while I'm over here getting my teeth kicked in until I get myself together.
Well, what amazes me about Coach K is like 2 years before he got there, they were in the Final Four with Norm Sloan. Then all of a sudden they're terrible for a couple of years. It's amazing to me he kept his job considering how bad things were at Duke the first couple of seasons. I mean, I don't know the whole story behind that, but that was a very lenient athletic director. I don't feel like that would happen now. I feel like if Duke had 2 like 14 and 17 seasons in a row, that guy wouldn't be there very long.
Oh yeah, they would probably Billy Gillispie him, and he'd be 2 and done like yes, Billy G was. And you think, like you said, with Norm Sloan, and then just before that in '78, they lost to the championship to Kentucky. So yeah. Duke did. So they were in the national final game again. And Jack Givens hit them for 41. And so they were a good run, getting close, and then you go back to 66, Kentucky knocked them out on the way to play Texas Western. So,
well, that's the thing. Sort of thinking about that, like Coach K or Bobby Knight or a lot of these guys who were in the conversation for the great coach of all time. One thing doing this book made me think is I think Calhoun, in my mind, might be number 2 because he goes in and wins 3 national titles in a program that was good in the Northeast, but was in no way a national program like Kentucky or Kansas. Even Duke had been great many times before Coach K gets there. Before Dean Smith was at UNC, they were a great program. I mean, UConn was the program nobody cared about out of New England, basically. And all of a sudden, they're one of the great programs in the country. So I think as a program builder, he has to be near the top of the list. And in many ways, what he does at UConn is he's emulating what he'd done at Northeastern right before that. Like he got a lot of guys who were a little under the radar. Like at Northeastern, Reggie Lewis is like a 6'6", 6'7" guy who ran like a horse. He had a knack for finding those guys who nobody else saw, and the team was just all 6'6" guys who were incredible athletes who ran like guards. And he kind of had that at UConn for a while too. I mean, one thing that's interesting talking to guys who knew both about what he did at Northeastern and what he did at UConn, they would see guys, they'd see, Khalid El-Amin or somebody show up at UConn and be like, oh, he's just like this other guy, Andre LaFleur, 10 years before at Northeastern. Like there were certain kind of players that Calhoun seemed to bring in and to be able to bring them to success. Or they'd see Ray Allen and be like, oh, he's a lot like Reggie Lewis. That he was able to bring certain players in and put them in the same place to succeed and at a bigger level at UConn, certainly because it's in the Big East. But what he'd done in kind of a mid-major level at Northeastern was very similar stylistically.
So he had the small ball thing before his time at Northeastern with everybody, 6'6", 6'7" and under, basically.
Oh, without question. And I think that's one of the big aspects of this book that like in the 70s, the big men had so come to dominate college basketball, whether it's Artis Gilmore or Bob Lanier or Kareem or Bill Walton or whoever. Like if you're at Boston University, you're not going to convince those guys to come there. You need to find another way to the top. So you got to get these small, quick guys and play a very pressing, trapping, fast-breaking kind of game to compete. You need to really blitz your opponents. And they all very much adopted this kind of small ball style, because in part just as a matter of necessity, because they couldn't get those guys to come to these relatively unheralded programs.
Absolutely. Got a lot of people, checking it out. So if y'all want to put a comment on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, feel free. You got a question for Clayton, got, comments about the book, feel free, definitely jump in the conversation.
Or we can talk Tiger King too. I got lots of thoughts on that.
Hey, bring that back, man. Bring it back. It's about time
for Tiger King 3. The Tiger King 2 was so disappointing.
Yeah.
Like I felt like it was almost just like a rehash of the first one. They were so they went a little more into Carol Baskin or whatever. Like I'm ready for a third one. I'll sit down and watch it 8 hours straight, whatever.
Like a good third one, right?
Oh yeah, a good third one. I mean, second one was sort of like Jaws 2.
Right. And like Terry's a movie guy, and everybody that listens knows I'm not, a big movie guy. Like, they make fun of me for all the stuff I haven't seen, but Rush Hour is like my favorite movie, so I love Rush Hour 1 and 2, but even the third one of that one is kind of like, when they're in Paris, like, so sometimes I think just, the three, they're just out of steam, right ideas. And
it's always weird when they stick it in a different city that's what's new, is that the people speak French or whatever is the new thing. And it's always like Crocodile Dundee, they do that with. Like it's an interesting move. I think it works sometimes, not others.
LA and Hong Kong for 1 and 2, that was cool, but the little Paris twist, it just didn't really hit right for some reason.
I wonder why they picked. Seems like a very odd choice to me. Why not do New York? That would be to me just make that for the next city. There have been a million movies about that. Just follow what they've done for those.
Yeah, no disrespect to Paris, but like it's never even like appealed to me to want to go. It's the destination for a lot of people. Want the big cities globally. New York, Tokyo, here or there, but Paris for me, I'm always just kind of anyway. I mean, I'd go to the French Open or something, but just the city itself, it's not really that high on my list. Maybe I'm wrong for that.
I'm fine staying in North America, honestly. I mean, like, there's a lot of stuff in the U.S. I haven't seen. I sort of feel like I kind of want to see that first before I go. I'm also a 6'4", 260-pound guy. I feel like the furniture in France would be small, is my assumption. I feel like I'm going to sit and break every chair and just embarrass myself, be uncomfortable the full time. I don't know the language. I'd be kind of embarrassed about that. Like, if I go to England, okay, they speak English, great. I could do that. I'm a little... I don't want to go be a bad tourist, and I don't want to break somebody's furniture. So I think I think I'll, go. I've never been to New Mexico. I think maybe I'll go there first. I've never been to Seattle. There's a lot of cities I've never been to. A lot of places I've never been. I think I'll do that first.
Seattle is one I definitely want to go to. That one like grabs me to want a city that.
Well, if they get an NBA team back, I'll go. That will be my move. The Thunder move back. I'll
Oklahoma's rioting as you speak, Clay.
I'm sure.
6'4", 260, man. Were you like that's a tight end, defensive end? Were you power forward? What were you doing with this size?
I was my position was generally left out. I played center on the football team. I played for a mediocre high school team. I was a mediocre player, and I was good at trivia. I was on the baseball team. I sat on the bench and drank the other kids' Powerade, and got my blood sugar up. I mean, I was better at like talking about sports and watching them and knowing them than actually playing them.
I got you. Going back to the book, man. Too, I wasn't able to find it, but I didn't. I looked a little bit. Jim Calhoun, as a player in college, what position did he play?
He was a guard. He was a classic point guard who becomes a coach kind of situation. He played at a small school called American International College in Springfield, Massachusetts. I mean, he played relatively. I mean, he didn't play college basketball for a couple years out of high school. His father died when he was a teenager, and he was like the man of the household when he was like 14. So like when he's like 17, 18 years old, he is cutting gravestones for a living. Like he works at like a company that did gravestone and engraving, and he was just there hacking stones up kind of thing as a teenager. Like when he's in college, Milton Bradley, like the board game manufacturer, is in Springfield, Mass. At night, he's like making Scrabble and stuff. Like he works. He has a night job while he's in college, making all the other Morton, Candyland and stuff like this. He's making board games as a college student. So he's busting his butt from a very young age while playing basketball.
So that made me want to ask too, and you might have more insight in this as well. But Calhoun being a classic point guard. Pitino, a point guard at UMass, Williams, a point guard at Maryland. Is there a point guard coincidence with the way these guys are wired? Sure, they all happen to be in Boston at kind of different, overlapping periods of time, and the whole Boston ball style of play. But the fact that all of them are point guards, does that maybe play a role in this in your mind?
I think so. I think they were all kind of coaches on the floor in college, I gather, in terms of their mentality, sort of the quarterback of the team, too. I mean, they all play. It's interesting. They all played fairly conservative offenses in college. Teams just running like very traditional cutting and zone offense kind of stuff. And they go and they end up playing very fast breaking offenses later on. I wonder if their experiences basically being the quarterback of that led them to be willing to be more flexible with other offensive approaches. Like Gary Williams in his own autobiography talks about, like, we played great defense at Maryland, but our offense was so slow, methodical, like we really couldn't get a lot of points going as a result of it. He very much embraced a fast-breaking kind of offense. His mentor is this guy, Dr. Tom Davis, who coached at Stanford and Iowa and Boston College as well. And Williams adopts a lot of things he learns from him in coaching, and he very much was run, 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 go, go, go as a style of offense.
Yeah, so that kind of being clamped down where you couldn't get up and down, and I mean that went on into we've had Roger Harden on here play for Kentucky in the 80s, and he talked about how Joe Hall would you got to give it to Bowie and Turpin and Kenny Walker. If it happens to come back out to you and you're open, then you can shoot the 18-footer. But like you said, the big men dominated everything, for years. Not just Jabbar and Chamberlain and Walton. We're up into the mid 80s, and it's still hadn't really shifted totally yet. And your book goes into how every region of the country had its own style of play. The Midwest was doing this. North Carolina was the four corners installing, and this little revolution in Boston, kind of ignited up there.
Definitely. It's interesting because I have some people who've read my book are people who don't watch basketball right now. They're nostalgic for Magic, Bird in the 80s, like the, March Madness of the 80s. They read the book. Like when they watch modern basketball, if they watch the NBA right now, it is like watching another sport for them, just seeing all five guys shooting three-pointers, guys being around the perimeter all the time. It just seems to have almost nothing to do with the sport they're used to watching. So I've watched games with a couple of people who've read the book recently, and they just they'll just turn on a random NBA game. They'll have no idea what's going on. It just seems like they're watching water polo or something when they look at just strategically how different the NBA is now. And I think it's for better or for worse. I mean, the shooting is just so remarkable. I mean, all of these guys can shoot now in a way that, I mean, you go back and watch a game in 1982, there's always like two stiffs on the floor who just couldn't shoot at all. But now you just every center is Dirk Nowitzki now or something. It seems like it's just remarkable, the revolution in basketball.
And I hope Wemby and Chet Holmgren stay healthy, because what they're doing at 7'3" is another dimension. We had Porzingis a little bit, and he was, he hadn't been able to stay healthy. He hasn't maybe been what everybody thought.
Mm-hmm.
And now these guys with the skill at that size, I just hope they stay healthy, because it's ridiculous what they flashed and showed us.
Oh yeah, I just try to catch a couple of minutes of every one of those games just to get a little. I'm not going to watch the whole game, get a feel of what these guys are doing early on in their careers. To me, I've always loved seeing a guy in their rookie season just sort of developing and getting a sense of what it is to play in the league, and it's been a lot of fun with Holmgren and Wemby right now like that.
Because I'm I mean, it's not entirely identical, but a 7'4" Garnett. I mean, you're 6 inches taller, and we thought Durant was crazy when he came out doing what he did in Texas, and then as a pro, and now you got guys 6 inches taller than him doing guard-like stuff. It's ridiculous.
I mean, a guy I talk about a bit in my book is Ralph Sampson, because they had a great tournament game in 1983 against Boston College, and he was 7'4" and was a fantastic college player, and his pro career was obviously shortened by injuries. I kind of wonder what his game would be like right now, because I think he'd be very well suited for the contemporary NBA. The physicality is very different than it was then, and I think he'd be suited to the more skill-oriented game that it is in a lot of ways.
That's true. That's a good point, man. Sure is, because he was lean and could run, and yeah, it was little couple decades ahead of his time for sure.
That guy had so much pressure on him too. Like from the minute he shows up, he's player of the year and stuff. And when are you going to win your national title, kind of thing? Like there's 4 other guys in the court with him. I mean, it's particularly, and it was, I think, a different time in terms of like one guy being able to dominate too. And it's just like the entire media in that time period was so focused on him. I think it really helped some of the other guys out in that 83 tournament in particular. They were able to go do their thing. Whereas every reporter in the country is in Ogden, Utah to go see the tournament game to cover Ralph Sampson. Like he's just sitting there so nervous at the press conference. He's blowing into a bag and stuff because it's like high elevation there. And he's just, the poor kid. I think of myself when I'm 20 years old. I can't imagine, he's got all these, cameras, for the whole world on him in this time period. And he's trying to live up to all these ridiculous expectations.
And he was a what if in Kentucky recruiting lore, the Oscar Combs, who was, started the Cat's Paws, the magazine, the first college publication for a subscription that covered a team. Basically, he started that in the 70s. But when he committed to Virginia, I don't know, it was kind of conflicted. He stepped to the mic and said, I want to announce that I'm committing to the University of and then he went Virginia. So
I didn't realize that. Wow.
He maybe wanted to go to Kentucky or somebody else wanted him to go to Virginia, went to Virginia against his will or whatever. But a lot of Kentucky media went to that pretty sure that he was coming to Kentucky. And then he says, I'm going to go to Virginia. And so that's one of those that, especially the older guys in the media, that one that got away or what if or what could have been had he decided to go to Lexington instead of Charlottesville. It's really cool.
That could be its own book. That's a great topic. I knew nothing about that.
Yeah. And before I let you go, man, as far as your books, you got 2 out now. Do you love them equally like your children, or how does your heart go as far as, Loserville, Boston Ball?
They're kind of different things. I mean, my first book was a product of my doctoral dissertation. It was a much more academic-y kind of book, in a lot of ways more a serious book. It took me a decade to write my first book. I mean, a lot of my 20s and 30s are built into that book, whereas this book I cranked out in a year. I think in some ways this was a lot more fun to do than my previous book, which it was a lot harder to write. There was a lot more research involved, like figuring out like the financing of stadiums and like learning about like the politics of Atlanta and the economy. That was a lot more hard work. I feel like this was a lot more a straight up sports book, and it was definitely more fun to write. I mean, I think it's sort of like your kids. You each you love them in different ways a little bit, I guess, but you love them equally. That's kind of a cop out answer. I mean, I probably like this book better, to be honest. I mean, I had more fun doing it, and I just loved being able to talk to these guys and become friends with some of them too. It's just been fantastic. I mean, just getting to, I have a lot of friends who are between 60 and 65 years old now, because that's like all the guys from the book are roughly in that age group. Yeah. Like somebody goes on Facebook and they look at my friends, like my friends are all 60.
And with this book, Jim Calhoun, Gary Williams, Rick Pitino, Rick's the young guy and he's 71 of the 3. Yeah. So I mean, he's the wet behind his ears youngster of the trio. 2 more things before I told a quick feel. I got 2 more quick things before I let you go, man. At the beginning of the book, you say in there, for my mom who taught me everything about sports. So what was mom teaching you? What was mom watching sports wise? What kind of sports mom did Clayton Trutor have?
When I was 5 years old, I watched sports with my mom. I'm 42 now. I go watch sports with my mom now. I mean, she's the best sports fan I know. I'm a Jets fan, unfortunately. Every Sunday I go watch the Jets with my mom, the Red Sox, the Celtics, Bruins. I mean, that's who taught me about sports. That's who I watched sports with as a kid. That's who I watch sports with now. I'm glad to be back in Vermont so I can do that. I mean, my mom is a wonderful friend of mine, and just I love nothing more than sitting around chatting sports with my mom.
That's awesome. And when we ask about the chapter layout, the Calhoun, Pitino, Williams, and you attributed it to reading Feinstein's book, have you had interactions with him or told him that, hey,
Oh,
man,
I've
I wrote
tried
a book?
so hard. I've sent him a zillion messages on Twitter and stuff. Check out my book. Hey, love to talk to you. Nothing, but that's okay. I mean, it's I've loved Season on the Brink. I've loved so many of his book about the Army Navy game. He's one of my favorite writers and been a big influence and inspiration on me. I'd love to meet him sometime. Love to get my book in his hands. He certainly had all of his books in my hands. So yeah, he's definitely a hero of mine.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, you've run the gamut. You've come on, podcasts with little guys like us, with Loserville, and you're on Feinbaum and all the big shows, and so congratulations on everything that you've done. Before you go, tell everybody where they can get their copy of Boston Ball. I'll put it there.
Well, you can go to the big boys like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and pay a little more for it. If you want to save some money, you can go to, I have it listed under my name, bit.ly/Boston Ball. And if you use promo code 6HLW23, you can save 50% between now and the end of the year. If you want to buy the book, go save yourself some money. Go to bit.ly/Boston Ball 6HLW23. If you message me on Twitter or Facebook or something and tell me you bought the book, I'll happily send you a signed book plate as thanks for buying the book and checking it out. Vinny, thank you so much for having me on. Terry, I hope you feel better.
Appreciate you, man. Boston Ball, Rick Pitino, Jim Calhoun, Gary Williams, and the Forgotten Cradle of Basketball Coaches. Clayton, man, congratulations on your second book. Wish you much success. We'll definitely have to get you back on here. And I always appreciate you hopping on here to spend some time with us, man.
Oh, what a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
Take care, man. Stay warm up there.
Oh, it's pretty hard too. Thank you.
Clayton Trutor, everybody. Friend of the show, came on before he had started writing books, and now he's got two great books out. So Loserville, about the dynamic of pro sports in Atlanta, and now Boston Ball, Calhoun, Pitino, Gary Williams, and how they changed the game and the style of play, coach up there in Boston at the same time. Our next guest is backstage, friend of the show. Been a little minute since we had him on. He's kind enough to spend a little bit of time with us after the wonderful event that happened this weekend up in Wayland. We have a basketball historian, a school teacher, a walking double-double when he played at Marshall. We have our guy, J.R. VanHoose, hopping on here with us. J.R., man, it's been a while. How you doing?
Buddy, what's going on? How you been? It has been a while.
Yeah, man, been a good little while since we had you on here with us, but man, doing pretty good. Can't complain at all. But just had to reach out after the throwback game up there in Wayland and see if we get you to talk about that a little bit and whatever else we get to.
Of course.
How leading up to it, just talk about how it all came together. The gym there at Wayland, just look, a lot of people know, a lot of people don't. Your relationship with King Kelly, getting Travis Perry and Lyon County up there. Just talk about the entire weekend, man.
Well, I've been involved with the Mountain Sports Hall of Fame. Oh my gosh, almost 10 years now. One of the very first events we did, we had a shrimp boil at the gym there. And, the old gym, it didn't have air conditioning. It didn't have heat. We had the shrimp boil in June. It felt like it was 120 degrees inside. But all that aside, it was a fundraising event. But we had guys like, of course, King Kelly was there. Larry Conley, Daryl Carrier came from Bowling Green. Corky Withrow, who played against King Kelly in high school from Central City out in Western Kentucky, came. And so we just had a lot of very cool people there. Todd May, who was Mr. Basketball from Eastern Kentucky, I was there. And so, that kind of was how everything got started with Kayla and I's involvement with the Mountain Sports Hall of Fame. And, we just kind of event after event trying to fundraise and we have this vision of what we want to achieve and just always working towards that goal. And, last year, actually not even last year, last February, we were able to have our first basketball game in there. Everybody's kind of doing these throwback games now. And Floyd Central, which is the local high school just a few miles from Wayland, they got old throwback jerseys and played as Wayland. And we played Knott County. They played Knott County, who played as Hindman. And so it was like a Wayland Heineman 1940s, 1950-ish basketball game in the old Wayland gym. And once we saw the success of that, just started spitballing ideas. Once we learned that Travis was going to break King Kelly's all-time scoring record, you just threw it out on the table. Be like, man, wouldn't it be great if we could get Lyon County up here to play a game? The new all-time scoring leader playing on the same floor that King Kelly once played on. And so, it was a process. The Lyon County was all in. Coach Perry and his staff and the administration, they were all about it. They actually played a game the night before. They played a district game against Crittenden County before they came to Wayland. I think they got to Prestonsburg where they stayed at like 5 o'clock in the morning.
Man.
The day of the game. And so they were invested. I mean, I don't know many high school teams that would, go a back-to-back like that. And then, have to play a game the day they get to the hotel at 5 o'clock in the morning. But, they were all about it. And I think that's just one of the few things that made it so special. And not only did that game take place, we had a girls game there as well. Lyon County's girls team came and they played Floyd Central. And I believe, if anybody can correct me, that would be great. But I believe that's actually the first high school girls basketball game that's ever been played in that gym. And so, not only did we have the all-time high school scoring leader, Travis Perry, playing on the court, King Kelly made famous, we had our first ever girls basketball game in that gym. And so, it was definitely a special night.
So when was the last game played there before the renovation and the reinvigorating? And
oh my goodness. Well, Wayland was consolidated with other schools in the area to make Allen Central High School. And I believe that occurred 1971, 72. And so the last high school game was that school year, I believe. The gym was built in 1937. So it had a long career itself, 40 some years as a gymnasium before we had another 40 years where it didn't host any high school event, 40, 50 years almost. And so, it was definitely a long time coming. I mean, just to realize what the building was when it was purchased, the foundation had to be established, it had to be worked on, walls had to be, refitted, and, all these different things had to take place. I mean, heating and air was put in the gymnasium. And so a lot of things had to be done before this could take place. And I think that's what we're really trying to tell a lot of people. This was a process. This wasn't something where somebody donated a few $1 million and we're like, all right, we're going to host a game in a year. No, this has been something where, we have lived on donations from some very kind people. And now we're just getting to the point where we can have events like games and things like that take place and bring more awareness to what we're trying to do there. And so, I think the more people see it, I can't tell you how many pictures were shared on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram from, the game on Saturday. And I think the more people see it, the more people want to come look at it. The interest grows. And that's what we're really trying to do. I think when the interest grows exponentially, I think that's when you start seeing more donations roll in and more things can be done to make these events that we have there even better.
And, I'm from the mountains too. I'm just 13th region guy, just down the road from you, from Harlan County. Grew up in Lynch, went to Cumberland, but a similar thing, not a gym or anything, but they did a renovation of Portal 31 for the coal mines where you can go in and actually take a tour. And they got automation set up, and each stop shows you what mining was like in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. This mine stopped operating in 1960. They, I think 2015, they did the first version of the portal, and then it was shut down. They had the grand reopening back in October. And so the same thing, a lot of pictures shared, a lot of people came. I went back home for it. A lot of people came and took the tour. And that same thing, you want people to come and see it. And the more people come and see it, the exact same thing you're talking about with the gym in Wayland, the same thing, kind of word of mouth. Hey, did you need to go see it? Hey, if you go into the game in Wayland, same exact thing. So it's a coal mine, portal, a gym, but the exact same thing taking place in both instances.
Yeah, I mean, and we've had 2 games there, and obviously it's a 1930s era gymnasium, so it's not built for thousands of people. So the fire marshal just limits us to 600 people, and so we've sold out both games. And we even on Saturday night, we had people showing up to the door just wanting to know if we'd had tickets. Any tickets were left, and we'd been sold out for weeks.
Yeah.
And so the demand is there. People want to come see games there, and we're hoping that through further donations, maybe help from the state, different grants that we've applied for, that we can enlarge the facility to a point where we can have a few more people in there. We can pack a few more people in there. And that's the point we want to get to. I think when people come in and they realize that games are being held there, and then upstairs we have actual memorabilia from a lot of people around the area in cases like you would see in a museum. And so you can see trophies, you can see old jerseys, baseballs that are autographed by people who may have gone on to play professionally from our area, footballs, old football helmets. I mean, we even had a guy a couple of years ago bring in his old pair of Chuck Taylors that he played basketball with in the 1960s. Like, the guy still had them. He didn't know what he was going to do with them. And we were like, we'll take them. If don't throw them away, we would love to display this, And so I think when people can come in and see all of those different things and enjoy a basketball game, I think it kind of, it's that nostalgia. I think, people like to kind of reminisce about how basketball was played in the 50s, in the 60s, some of the great players. They think of the movie Hoosiers a lot, when they come in the gym. And so not only can you watch a game, but you can see this fabulous memorabilia that we have. And not only that, I mean, that King Kelly Coleman played in this gym, one of the all-time greats of Kentucky high school basketball. And so when you combine all that together, I think it just makes it a very special place. I think it's probably the most special basketball place in Kentucky, not just Eastern Kentucky.
Yeah. So are there any more games for this season, or is the throwback game the last one of this year as far as what's on the docket?
I mean, I think we're trying to recover from this game on Saturday, right? I mean, when you're trying to throw a game like that together, and you've got, it was live on WYMT, 2 radio stations live streamed it. And so, you've got all of this attention going around it. Plus, you're bringing in a group to run the concession stand. A group is coming to park vehicles. And so you're trying to get all of these different things organized. And I mean, we would love to have more games there. We actually, as soon as the last person left on Saturday, we began spitballing ideas for like a King Kelly Coleman Classic. Not just one game, but a series of boys and girls games, maybe over Thanksgiving break or Christmas break. I mean, this, because we have to be careful, with the facility we have and the amount of people we can get in there. You can't host games back to back. I mean, if you can only get 600 people in the gym, you have to think about, all right, everybody has to park somewhere. The 2 teams have to be in here, the game's going on. And then if you have another game, you've got 2 more sets of fans, 2 more sets of teams. So it's a parking deal. And so, it's a whole thing that really kind of has to be choreographed almost of how it's going to work. And so, I mean, we're always in discussions with people that want to come and play, people that have heard about it or watch the game on Saturday on TV and would love to have their team play in the gym. And so, I'm sure we will probably have a game at some point again this season, probably towards the end of the season. But again, it's like somebody would have to give up a home game that they would normally play at their own facility to play in ours. And so, that's a little bit of the process. We have to talk with different people through all these different things.
Yeah. So, and it's crazy that there were no girls games played until the other day too.
Listen, Vinny, if you think about it, girls high school basketball didn't become a thing until 1975 in Kentucky. They played in the 20s and 30s, and then in 1932, the KHSAA didn't sanction girls high school basketball, for the next 43 years. And so Wayland had closed as a school before 1975 occurred. And so, there was already another school, another gymnasium built. And so, no high school girls basketball. I mean, it is kind of weird to think about that, right? I mean, today we think about boy-girl doubleheaders all the time in high school basketball. But to be able to do that and not even really realize that we're doing that, the Lyon County staff, they said, instead of playing a JV game, can we bring our girls team? We were like, sure, let's do that. Let's play a girls game. And not even thinking about, the historical part of this is going to be the first girls game. In fact, I don't even think we realized it until the game was getting ready to start on Saturday. Somebody asked us if a girls game had been played there before. We've had girls teams in there to practice, but we've never had an actual game in there.
And so girls basketball became a thing 4 or 5 years after the gym closes. The sanctioning from the KHSAA shuts down women's basketball 5 or so years before the gym is built. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's just, when you think about things like that, it's kind of, it brings out the historian part in you. And really, to be honest with you, I don't think a lot of people realize, there were separate state tournaments for white high schools and black high schools up through the 1950s in Kentucky. There were different organizations that ran different state tournaments before integration. And so, when people think about that, it's really not been that long ago.
No.
That girls couldn't play high school basketball and white teams couldn't play against black teams in high school basketball in Kentucky. And so, when you're dealing with information like that, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this has never been done before, or this has never happened in this place before. And so, it's kind of what makes that history part a little bit more special when you're doing events like this.
Yeah, like you said, this one isn't 1750 something when things were segregated. It's just a generation ago.
Right.
My dad was born in 1953. So
same for my dad. My dad was born in 1956. And I think the first integrated state tournament in Kentucky was like 1957. Yeah. So our parents were alive when all this was occurring. People. I'm sure people that came to watch this game at Wayland, because I know some of these. I know we had a gentleman who actually played against King Kelly Coleman in high school. He was alive. When these things were occurring, and so, and I think those are the things that really get me interested in doing events like this. Is when you have like a historical moment that is taking place. It makes it so much more special.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you talked about the beginning and bring you on your relationship with King Kelly Coleman and Travis Perry. Of course, everybody saw his, torrid scoring and never knew he was going to break it. You may have known him. You knew him as well as anybody. I'll go ahead and say that. What do you think King would have said about Travis, or watching Travis break his record, or watching him as a player? What do you think his observation would have been based on, your time spent with him and how he saw things and, conversations y'all had? What do you think he would have said if he was sitting there watching Travis's career unfold?
Well, and that's a great question. And a lot of people asked me and Kayla and some other people Saturday night about it. And, and I'll tell you what I told them. And there's no shame in it. King Kelly loved his records. He was proud of the fact that he did these things as a young man. And what a lot of people don't realize was he was a 17-year-old senior. And so it wasn't like he was like late 18, 19-year-old kid. He was a kid. 17 years old when you're a senior and you're doing these things, like averaging 40-some points a game. You're scoring. I think one game his senior year he had 75 points and 41 rebounds in the same game. Things that you would do on a video game and not be sure that people could actually do that, for real. And so he was very proud of his records. And Now, having said that, I would say that he would be proud of what Travis has done, right? You know, so I think a lot of people think Kelly was this ornery, cantankerous kind of man, and he may have been like that to certain people. He was never like that to my wife or I. You know, in fact, we felt like he was more like our grandfather because of the relationship that we built with him. And so, you know, Kelly loved his records. I will say that. He would be proud of Travis for doing what he is doing. But I know for a fact that Kelly would always say this too. I never played with a 3-point line. Right. You know, so, and I've heard people say that, you know, they're different eras are different, and it's hard to compare players from different eras. Right. I mean, I heard you guys talking in the segment before, you know, basketball today is different from even when I played in college 20 years ago, or when I played professional basketball 15 years ago, right? Like, and you even said it, I think, 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", 6'11 guys, you play around the basket, right? You have a set of skills as a post player, right? You're not stepping out shooting threes, right? But the game has changed. The game is different. And that line has made the game different, right? I mean, you know, the 3-point line's been around in high school basketball since the 1987-88 season, I believe. And even then it wasn't utilized, right? It was kind of like a specialty shot that you may use in certain situations. But now with analytics and everything, that's almost like the best shot you can take, right? If you can make that 3-point shot, you want to take that more than you want to take like a mid-range jump shot from the free throw line, right? Like, you watch teams play today, and it's either let's get to the basket, get a dunk or layup, or we're going to shoot threes. We're not going to do anything between, right? And so that's different, you know, in the 50s and 60s and even before that, these guys didn't have, you know, everything was a two-pointer. It didn't matter where you shot the ball from, right? And so I've heard stories that people have said as soon as King Kelly crossed half court, you know, it was kind of like a green light for him. Anywhere on that side of the floor inside the half court line, he could shoot from, right? And he did. So if there was a 3-point line, who knows how many points he would have scored. But that's a different era. You know, Travis, and again, Travis, I think, has played since his 7th grade year, right?
Yeah.
You know, King Kelly played 4 years. And so, and I've heard it all, right? You know, you hear people say, well, I believe this, I believe that. It's different eras, right? I mean, Kelly played 4 years of high school. I played 5 years, right? Travis has played 6 years, right? So numbers are numbers, right? It's still a huge accomplishment when you can break records like that. I mean, nobody had done it before Travis, right? Nobody scored this many points. And so that's special, right? And it should be treated as special. Now, all this debate of, well, there wasn't a 3-point line, or, you know, the kids weren't athletic in the 50s and 60s. It was easy to score points. You know what? All that could be true. It could not. I mean, who knows, right? I mean, everybody has these debates with NBA players, right? Could Larry Bird play in this era now? Yeah, he probably could. He could probably dominate, right? I mean, but we'll never know. The numbers are the numbers. The rules were the rules. And so, yeah, I think, you know, Kelly was proud of his records. He would be proud of Travis, I think. And, you know, he came from a different era. Like I said, he played in a different time. And so, yeah, he would probably say that. I did it without a 3-point line, right? I mean, I think most of us would say something like that, right? If we didn't play with a 3-point line, well, I did this, I did that. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, you know, I mean, being close to Kelly, I have no doubt in my mind that he would be proud of what Travis has accomplished. And he would have loved to see Travis play on the court he used to play on.
So he would be, like you said, proud of what he did, rightfully so, but proud of Travis and not bitter like maybe people would think he may have been.
I don't think he would be bitter at all. I mean, I think he would see it for what it was, you know, and we would get into the discussion about records all the time because I used to kid him all the time, right? You know, my sophomore year when we won the state tournament when I was at Painesville, we played Lexington Catholic in the semifinals. I had 27 rebounds in that one game, right? And so at the end of the game, they make this huge announcement that I broke the all-time rebounding record in a game at the state tournament Wes Unseld had 25 rebounds in a game twice. And so that was a huge accomplishment for me, right? A couple weeks later, somebody discovers that King Kelly Coleman had 28 rebounds against Carr Creek in 1956 in the state tournament, right?
Oh, man.
So no record for this guy, right?
Man.
But, and so I would kid him all the time. I was like, Kelly, how could that not be in the record book, right? Like, like 30 years, 40 years after you've done that, how's that not in the record book? But he did. He actually did have 28 rebounds.
Wow.
But again, like I was saying about the record, I think I set out 6 minutes of that game. So in the course of those 6 minutes, I probably could have got 3 more rebounds for sure. Right? I could have got 30 rebounds. Nobody knew that the record was 28. They thought it was 25, right? So I get to come out, I've broken this record. And so we would laugh and joke about that all the time. Why do you have to have the scoring record and this rebound record? Why can't you just let me have one thing? And so he would always be like, well, if I could give you a rebound, I would. I was like, well, we need to go talk to the commissioner then. I think you need to give me one of your rebounds, and so we would laugh and joke, but he was like that. Records to him were fantastic, and he knew that a few of them were going to be broken, right? That's part of the game. And so being bitter, no, he definitely wouldn't be bitter at all.
And he's probably wondering why nobody discovered this when
why is this punishing me? That's all I was. That's all I was wanting to know. Why did this punish me?
Yeah, unbelievable. Got a comment from Jamie Stark from what we were talking about a few minutes ago. Said Pops played in the first integrated 9th region game versus Tommy Thacker and Covington Grant. Wow. Okay.
You've heard of Tom Thacker, haven't you, Vinny?
Yeah.
Covington Grant played at University of Cincinnati with Oscar Robertson. Played in the NBA. Yeah, man. They're
56, 57.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? You think that's something that's been around for a long time. When you think about it, it's like, man, that's not really been around that long.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I was in high school in the 90s, that had only been like 35 years before. And I'm thinking, it's almost been 30 years since I've been out of high school. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. We had Nate Northington on from Louisville, who integrated the SEC in football. He played for Kentucky. One of the 4, when you go to the practice facility, the Trailblazers, they got the statue right there beside the field house. And this was 67, and he got in the game against Ole Miss. And I'm thinking, he integrated the entire SEC, and they had to, Condridge Holloway and Kenny Chesney did that Color of Orange documentary, and that was like 72. I'm like, well, he did this 5 years before them in 67. But then I'm like, 67, that's just 10 years before I was born.
Yeah.
And this is happening. So, it's
well, listen, Vinny. I didn't, not to get on the subject of race or anything.
Right.
Like in the course of research, like when you look at newspapers, like I found news articles, the Boston Celtics, when Frank Ramsey was on the team, he was from Kentucky. They were playing an exhibition game in Lexington, right? And we're talking like Bill Russell and like all of these like legends of the game on the Boston Celtics, right? And they wouldn't feed them at the hotel.
Yeah.
And you're thinking like, how can you tell Bill Russell like, no, you can't eat in the dining room, right? And those guys were wanting to leave and not play the game. And I'm thinking, man, that happened in Lexington, like in the late 1950s, early 60s. And I'm just like, man, that's unbelievable. I'm still like, how do you look at Bill Russell and be like, no, you're not famous enough, or you know what I mean? It's just
not human, human enough.
When you read stuff like that, you're just like, I cannot believe it's not been that long ago that stuff like this actually happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm right there with you. You mentioned your better half, how you and Kayla both knew King, and she is coaching volleyball now, right? So what's it like being the husband of a volleyball coach?
Well, she tells me she wants me to be the trophy husband. So I'm just waiting for the moment, right, that I don't have to work anymore and she can take care of me. Like that. That sounds like a perfect goal for me. like just to, retire and just ride her coattails. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But no, it's going good, man. She's the head volleyball coach at Alice Wood College, and I think she's learning that college game. She's learning how it's different than high school. She's learning about recruiting and kind of what that takes, and of course, I'm right there along with her, and helping her along the way, and I mean, shoot, she turned me into one of the van drivers this year. So, I mean, I had to make myself useful somehow, right? So, I drive one of the team vans when we go on trips, and the girls call me like the team dad because I'm always sitting behind the bench, cheering, driving the van, whatever needs to be done. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's fun for me. I mean, I enjoy learning the game because I didn't really know a lot about volleyball, even when she was coaching high school volleyball. And so the rules are completely different than any basketball rule that I was used to. And so I'm always learning, and the college game is faster. And I tell people all the time, listen, if you've ever watched college volleyball, I mean, shoot, you talk about some athletic student athletes. I mean, Kayla and I have been to watch UK play a couple times, and of course, we'll watch when they're on TV as well. And I mean, man, you talk about just jumping up and just smacking the ball and chasing after. I mean, I love watching volleyball almost as much as I like watching basketball, just because I think as an athlete you can kind of appreciate, like what those kids are doing. I mean, it's so hard to score a point, and you're blocking, you're hitting, you're diving, you're getting. I mean, it's so fun to watch, and I'm glad that she's coaching in college, and man, I can't wait to see what she does in the future. I know she's going to have a lot of success.
And I'm sure you guys can attest to it even more. You mentioned watching Kentucky, and you got Louisville, you got Western, you got what Kayla's doing at Alice Lloyd. The growth in the state is. It's just kind of skyrocketing. Kentucky won the championship a couple of years ago, but statewide, it's just going through the roof now. The popularity,
and I have to. I mean, I think we have to give props to those Division I schools, like you said. Louisville, Kentucky, the things that they've done in the national tournaments. Even Morehead State, Western, Northern Kentucky. All these schools are starting to turn out some very good volleyball teams, and I think when high school kids in the state see that, they become more interested in the sport. There's even some discussion of the KHSAA sanctioning boys high school volleyball. There are a few club teams around Lexington. I think a few of the Lexington high schools have some volleyball teams. It's not a sanctioned sport yet. I think it's moving in that direction. And so, yeah, man, I think the sport of volleyball is growing, and to see boys have a chance to, form their teams and things like that. I mean, that's awesome. I mean, that's when you can have kids have an opportunity to showcase their skills in anything, athletics, academics, whatever. I mean, that's definitely a win-win for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to talk about your alma mater, Marshall. Watching them last night, the other night in the bowl game against UTSA, and it's just how crazy that they get, the legacy quarterback. You got Cole Pennington, Chad's son, there playing quarterback for the Herd, which is just, I mean, he's not the first legacy. I mean, we're watching Reed Shepherd and Jeff Shepherd, but just seeing these kids of guys our age now is unreal. Or is it?
It makes you feel old. It makes you feel old. I mean, Chad was a senior when I was a freshman at Marshall. And so, and of course, Chad and I have a pretty good relationship, Marshall guys, of course. And yeah, it's weird seeing his son be the quarterback. And I think even at one point during the bowl game last night, somebody called him Chad Pennington. They said Chad Pennington completed a pass. Yeah. Right? I mean, I mean, it's a tough legacy to live up to, when your dad won a national title at Marshall and, was a Heisman finalist and NFL draft pick. And I mean, that is a tough legacy to live up to. And, Marshall, we struggled a little bit this year. We finished below 500 in football for the first time since like 2016 or something like that. But listen, there's always growing pains, in a football situation. But, we made it to a bowl game.
Yeah.
Hopefully they can. I think National Signing Day was today, and they were talking about. I think it was something like we signed 10 high school players today, 5 kids that were in the transfer portal. So, they were pretty positive about that. So, yeah, I mean, college athletics it's different than when I played. The NIL is really changing things. And I guess we can go ahead and let's just dive in and talk about the NIL, right? I'm all for players getting paid, right? I think they should be paid. I have no problem doing that. But what I think if the NCAA doesn't get a hold on it, I think you're going to see schools like Marshall, basketball, football, going to kind of be like a minor league level for some of those like top tier schools. You know what I mean? Like they might bring in a high school kid or maybe a JUCO kid who has a breakout year. Maybe that kid, is receptive to getting paid a little bit more than what they could get paid at a Marshall or Moorhead or whatever kind of level. And then they leave. They have one good year and then they're gone to somebody else, right? And so I don't necessarily like that part of it. Of course, I'm sure you watched the Marshall basketball game when we played Kentucky a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I mean, shoot. I mean, talk about a track meet, man. At 118-82. I mean, how do you score 82 points and lose a game by 30? You know what I mean? But I knew Marshall's going to play like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think what a lot of people don't understand is Marshall's not bad. We lost our all-time leading scorer last year to graduation. He averaged like 24 points a game. He scored something like 2,500 points in his career. He's in the G League with the Utah Jazz team right now. Our starting point guard for 4 years was from Corbin, Andrew Taylor, a first team all-league guy in the Sun Belt, averaged 20 points a game. He's gone to Mississippi State, right? Mississippi State comes in. They needed somebody at his position. I heard the money was fairly substantial, and so he left, right? We lost 2 20-point scorers last year. And not only that, we had a 7-foot freshman who we had signed as a project 2 years ago, developed into a fantastic player. In fact, he was the Sun Belt Conference Freshman of the Year last year, averaged nearly a double-double. He's at Florida, right? So you lose 3 players like that. Man, it's hard to, and then you're stepping out on the floor at Rupp Arena and you've lost your 4-year starting point guard, your all-time leading scorer, and your 7-foot athletic center.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised we scored 82 points against Kentucky.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I think that's the landscape you're going to see now. I really think that. And it hurts me to say that because, I like watching kids develop a career at one school. The fans kind of they ingrain themselves in the lives of those athletes, and you become attached. You have favorite players, right? It's kind of hard to have a favorite player when they're leaving every year and going somewhere else. You know what I mean? Yeah. But again, like I said, I'm all for players getting paid. I would just like to see this transfer thing, 1-2 times tops, maybe. I don't know what they're going to do with that. I think the NCAA is trying to do something with a 2 transfer rule, but man, it's a different landscape than it was, 10 years ago.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely is. So tell everybody back to, before we finish up, about the Mountain Sports Hall of Fame and everything. Like you said, you've been involved with it for over a decade and, put the event together and everything that you're doing. It's, you can come see it and tell everybody about it.
Come see it. It's in Wayland, Kentucky, old coal mining community. We have a presence on Twitter and Facebook, Mountain Sports Hall of Fame. We're always posting things about events, players who have played and, kind of the goings on, so to speak, of, what we're doing there. And I mean, shoot, if you're in the giving mood, it's the Christmas season. Please send us some donations too. We can always put your donations to use. One of our next big projects is to add a 2-story addition to our gymnasium. Right now, Vinny, we don't have locker rooms or restrooms in the gym facility. We have an annex building that, is 20 feet away. And that's a place that we want to work on because, this annex that we have, we see visions of it being possibly a future diner for the community of Wayland. And when teams come into play, a place where we can feed the teams. And so we would like to have this addition so that we can have locker rooms, restrooms, more seating, kind of like a common area where people can gather and talk and, we can have meetings and things like that. And I think once we get this addition, we'll get the money for the funds for it, get this addition, and we can move forward with a diner next door to, we can really do a good job feeding teams that we bring in and putting on a good show for them. I think the sky's the limit. If we can keep hosting events like this and getting the turnout that we get, I'm really excited to see what we can do moving forward.
And so if they, do look to try to have another game later in the season, do you go to the Mountain Sports Hall of Fame online?
Yeah,
tickets, or you call?
Yes,
or?
Just follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook. We'll post upcoming events. I mean, we've had concerts in there. We've had a lot of different things. And so we always let people know what we're going to be doing, kind of what the projects we are working on moving forward and things like that. So, yeah, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook, and stay up to date with what we're doing in Wayland.
Cool. And I don't mean to end on a sad note, but I can't not ask you because your tweet is what I saw first when Coach Billy Hicks passed away. I saw your tweet but just your interactions with him, your memories of him, and look, I'm a 13th region guy. He started there at Everett's. I've heard all the stories that my dad used to tell me about those Everett's teams when he played, when they would come up to Cumberland and the battles that they would have. And so been just like you, been knowing about Coach Hicks as a player before I was even born. And then you and I both saw his coaching career. You played against his teams and got to know him after playing. So just your thoughts about Coach Hicks.
Well, it was shocking to hear the news. His nephew, Jim Hicks, is our girls coach here at Johnson Central. And so, of course, we heard it very early in the morning, the day after it happened. And, I've knew Coach Hicks for a long time. My senior year at Painesville, we actually had our opening scrimmage against Scott County in Painesville. They came to Scott County and played, and we actually finished the season with them. They beat us in the state finals that year. And, I can remember, of course, it hurts to lose in the state finals, but I was processing it as I had already won one as a sophomore, but it still hurt. I guess if I was trying to deal with it in my own way. And, I can remember after that game when Coach Hicks won his first title, him just coming up to me and, just speaking from the heart, telling me how proud he was of me and, how great of a career I had. And, and it that relationship kind of started there. It was a low moment athletically for me, but, he was trying to do his best to, obviously he was going to be happy, right? That was his first state title as a coach. And he was trying to make it a little bit easier for me. And I never forgot that. And so, when we would see each other at state tournaments, it was always a hug, a big, strong handshake, and, how you doing and things like that. And got close to a couple of his players the last few years. Michael Marino, who's at Eastern Kentucky, one of my all-time favorites that came out of Scott County. And, and so being around, where Kayla and I help with the Kentucky All-Star game, and we help with the Coaches Association. So we're always around the Mr. and Miss Basketball event. And so you would always see Coach Hicks and his players around. And so, that relationship just developed into a friendship. And it was tough to hear the news. It was devastating, really, because, you just expect guys like that to be around forever. The knowledge that he had basketball wise, like I said, his nephew is the girls coach here. I can't tell you how many times in the last 2 years since Coach Hicks has been here that the other Coach Hicks would show up to practice and help his nephew coach the girls. And so it was kind of was kind of wild to see, Billy Hicks out on the floor helping his nephew coach a girls' high school basketball team, running them through drills, talking to them about defenses and things like that. And so, yeah, he was a legend in Kentucky high school basketball, and for him to be gone, it's just a big loss.
Absolutely. I think it was Steve Moss at WKYT that put out the story of, he took the Scott County job, hadn't even looked at the school, and just went there because he wanted to show the city schools that mountain schools, could coach defense. We come up a generation after him, but did you still see maybe city schools, Lexington and Louisville schools looking at you at Paintsville and teams from the mountains as y'all can't defend, or was that still kind of a knock on you guys?
Listen, that's a great question. And I think I'll answer it like this, right? So, of course, there wasn't social media in the 90s, right? And so when you saw kids or teams play, you actually had to go watch them in person, right? There wasn't a lot of TV news channels that even put high school games on, right? There was no Facebook streaming, Twitter, TikTok, none of that stuff. So, yeah, I think teams from like Lexington, Louisville, away from Eastern Kentucky especially, they never knew a lot about how we were playing basketball here, right? Teams didn't necessarily travel that far to play. No. It was kind of a big deal if you did play in a tournament in Lexington or Louisville. But I will say this for my high school coach, he wanted to showcase our team. So like my freshman year, we played in the King of the Bluegrass in Louisville, right? My junior year, we played in the Fifth Third Bank Classic that was hosted by Lexington Catholic. My senior year, we played in the Marshall County Shootout out in Western Kentucky. Mm-hmm. So he wasn't about, just trying to dominate teams in Eastern Kentucky. We always wanted to see how we matched up against teams from different parts of the state. And not only that, we wanted to see how we matched up against teams from other parts of the country. My freshman year, in addition to going to the King of the Bluegrass, we went to a tournament in Wilmington, North Carolina. And so got to experience some real East Coast basketball, right? My sophomore year, we played in the Las Vegas Holiday Invitational, and we played in the huge Beach Ball Classic in Myrtle Beach.
Yeah.
And so we were getting to see like not only the top players in the state, we were getting to see like the top players in the nation, right? And so I think that helped us develop into a team that could compete in the state tournament, right? Because you have to know what the best teams, what the best players are doing to even have a chance to think about winning the state tournament, right? So, I think that kind of competition, we never felt like we were out of place when we went to Lexington or Louisville or were in the state tournament, right? So, like my sophomore year, the year we won the state tournament, we had played against Mike Bibby in Myrtle Beach, right? We all know what Mike Bibby did in the league, right? We were actually beating his team until the fourth quarter, until he just took it upon himself to go off and just set a scoring record in the tournament, right? We played against St. Patrick's, New Jersey, who's a dominant team in the Beach Ball Classic. They had a post player named Malik Allen who played at Villanova, played in the NBA, right? So even as a 16-year-old kid, like we are playing against guys who are established as seniors, right? And so when you get to the state tournament, you might find yourself in a situation where you're down a couple points, or you kind of need to slow the pace down a little bit, get your offense set. And we've done those things before. We've done those things against top teams. And so it wasn't like something like, oh, we're nervous. We've never done this before. We've never seen a player score 10 points in a row or hit this many. No, we've seen all that, right? So I felt like we were fairly prepared to compete against anybody. And I don't know if teams overlooked us sometimes because they just thought we were from Eastern Kentucky, so we'd be rollovers or whatever. But I think because of the schedules that we played, I think that prepared us for success in the postseason. And I think that's how you have to coach. I think your kids have to see different teams, different styles. They have to go up against different coaches to be successful, because I mean, let's face it. Anybody can stay in their region or their area and win 20 games. But, you know, if you go to the state tournament, you might get beat by 30 or 40. And so just making it to the state tournament, I never felt like that was big enough. I always wanted to win the thing, right? Like, I mean, that's what you want to do when you're in a tournament. We're here. We might as well win the thing. We're just not here to have a good time and be happy about being here. We want to win it, you know? And so, yeah, I like, and we're doing the same thing here at Johnson Central. We always have, you know, we're going to Tennessee next week after Christmas, playing a tournament down there. And I mean, we do travel a lot. Last year we went to Charleston, South Carolina, playing a tournament. So, yeah, I mean, I think when you expose your kids to new areas, new styles of play, new coaching, and different things like that, I think you're going to have a better team.
Yeah, absolutely. So you and Kayla going to the state tournament, you're doing the coverage and the breakdowns of each game like you do?
Buddy, we are always at the state tournament. You know we're always at the state tournament. I don't know what Kayla's doing. She can break down the games. I'm eating the ice cream. That's why I'm eating ice cream at Rep Arena. I'm sad I've not had any in a while, so that's all I'm looking forward to.
So the bluegrass basketball is what that was the Twitter account. Yeah. So
you'll see us at the state tournament. We'll cover games. We'll be down there covering games, and I'll have that ice cream, man. I mean, I don't know how much money we spend on ice cream, but it's a lot. I know that.
Hey, it'll be here before we know it. You get your fix, right?
Listen, you already got me. I'm craving it. I can't get anywhere around Paintsville. I don't know what I wish somebody could send me some. Anybody out there send me some ice cream? That would be fantastic.
That's it. We gotta get somebody on that, man.
Yeah, I want to be like Jay Billis. You know, when the cheerleader brought in the ice cream, like, hey, somebody send me some ice cream. I don't care. I don't care how it gets here. I just want some ice cream from my
He gets to hook up every time he does a game.
I'm telling you, man. I'm gonna have to go into like broadcasting or something. I'm gonna have to get Cameron's job, how he does the pregame, so I can get in Rep Arena to get some ice cream.
There it is. Even though he says he's not a media member, but he's more media all the time. He's doing podcasts and.
Well, listen, I'll tell you this, and I know I heard him talk about it on the radio. You know, the day they played Marshall. You know, he had texted me at school, and he was like, "Hey, I don't mean to bother you, and don't go out of your way, but what can you tell me about Marshall?" And that's all I needed to hear. You know, I'm actually doing research for a book on Marshall basketball history. Dude, I ended up sending him like 5 pages of stuff, like history, like the connection to the University of Kentucky and Marshall, like the different connections. He was like, "Man, you didn't have to send me 5 pages." I was like, I didn't know how much you needed, man. I wasn't sure. I didn't know what you were going to talk about, so I gave you a lot of talking points. I'll say that. So yeah, I overdid it that time, but that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was hoping for some ice cream, though, in return.
Yeah, that's the least he could have done.
Yeah, you could have sent me some ice cream.
Man, JR, can't thank you enough. This has been a blast. Appreciate you, recapping everything that happened at Wayland this weekend. I got to get up there and see that gym.
You got to, man. You got to. Listen, just next time you come home, just take a little detour. I'll meet you at Wayland. We'll hang out at the gym. You can shoot some baskets. Everybody wants to shoot baskets in there.
Yeah, I'll do it.
We'll make it special for you.
Yeah, I come and check out the Hall of Fame and do a game. I have to
please do. And listen, I definitely want people to understand that, right? It is a sports Hall of Fame, right? So we have stuff from almost every sport you can think of, right? Pictures, memorabilia, basketball, football, baseball, swimming. I mean, we have all kinds of stuff. And please come check it out. We have a local history section, at the community center in Wayland, where there's a coal room. So if you're interested in coal mining, you can see like donated equipment, old types of mining equipment. Some sounds like what they have in your hometown, like at that portal. We just don't have sports stuff. We have a lot of historical stuff that I think a lot of people would be interested in seeing.
Absolutely. I appreciate you coming on and telling our listeners about it, and we can definitely make plans to head that way and check it out, man. Thank you so much. And
I appreciate it, man.
Enjoy the rest of the evening, enjoy the rest of your season, and enjoy your break from school too, man.
Buddy, listen, it's a great break. It's a great break, but we're playing in a tournament in Leslie County, so we've been traveling. We travel today, travel tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to being able to sleep in a little bit, though. That's for sure.
Yeah. Be safe going back and forth to hide, man.
All right, buddy. I'll see you later. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, JR. Appreciate
man.
it. JR VanHoose, like the first comment, like Corey said, JR is a legend. Absolutely is. I didn't go to Paintsville, but when they won state championship, look, y'all know how it is at the state tournament. You know, it's the city schools against the mountain schools. And so everybody, we were all pulling for Paintsville and glad and proud that they won it, you know, for the mountains when they won that state championship. Appreciate JR coming on. Go to the Mountain Sports Hall of Fame. Got to get up there to Wayland and check out the gym as well. Appreciate Clayton Trutor for coming on, talking about his book, Boston Ball. JR talking about the weekend, the throwback game there at Wayland with Travis Perry and Lyon County coming. Appreciate TB hopping on, even though he was a little bit under the weather. Y'all check out this episode. It's on YouTube. We were live on Twitter and Facebook. Follow and subscribe. You can listen if you want the audio version on Spotify and iHeart and wherever you get your podcast. Be back next Wednesday. We'll be talking about the Cats playing the Cards in Louisville, National Signing Day. A lot of football news went down today as well. We'll talk about all that as well. Appreciate y'all that hopped on and took the time to check out the podcast. We definitely appreciate it. And once again, my name is Vinny Hardy. We'll catch everybody same time next week here on Cats Talk Wednesday. Everybody take care, and we will holler at y'all later. I'm going to find a little button to play the outro, and we will be back next week. Thanks again for watching. Y'all be safe. Can't find the button. Oh, well. Just go ahead and end the show. And we'll see y'all later on. Thank you for watching.